Hey, welcome to Breaking Work. This is a dedicated space where we break down the default view we all have of work to reimagine and redesign what it could be for us. To do that, I like to bring on guests who have carved their own paths, taken control of their work lives, and now make a living on their own terms. So if you're looking to make a quick buck, lay on the beach somewhere, this is not the place for you. But if you've had that feeling that, is this all there is? Maybe dreaming of becoming the best version of yourself through your work, then you've reached the right place. If you don't know me, hey, I'm Michael Garden. I coach corporate pros how to break that feeling of corporate dependence and help them build self-directed futures where they're in control and building something they truly care about. I'll spare you all the details of my own breaking work journey, but I'd love if you connected with me on LinkedIn, drop me a DM and just said, hey. My guest today is the Matt Doan. And if you don't know Matt already, you will get to know him right here. Matt is a former management consultant who found himself burned out, divorced, deeply lacking purpose, motivation, and drive, and all because of his addiction to work. But he did something about it, and he broke that addiction methodically. Within 2 years, he cut his corporate hours by 50%, which gave him space to think and to create. He detached from that corporate identity that stifled his freedom and creativity, and he built a business around his own creative genius. And that business now helps other trapped corporate execs uncage themselves and find their true genius to build a life of freedom. Matt, thank you so much for being here, my friend. How are you?
What's up, brother? Good to have this interaction today. Life's great.
Yeah, this is somewhat overdue. We obviously you've been on my podcast once. I've been on yours. We have connected and we have been kindred spirits from afar, digitally. We've met in person a few times, has been so powerful and so amazing. We obviously have a lot in common, and I'm so excited to bring your story to the people here today.
With boldness, let's do it.
Perfect. All right, so I'm going to just start at the deep end. I'm jumping in the deep end here. So something that's been on my mind, and obviously you and I think about this a lot, is it feels like we have this just existential crisis today specifically within corporate work, crisis of meaning and purpose. And people now more than ever are asking, like, what is this all there is? What the hell am I doing here? And people are kind of waking up to there may be something sort of lacking. In your view, where is this coming from? And maybe it's in your own personal journey or reflections, but where does this sort of coming from?
Two things. One, media, specifically social. Two, generational changes. So first off, back decades ago, even before you and I were in the working world, our parents and such grew up in the world where traditional media was slow and hyper curated, and you just knew your local environment. You went to your job, you went to that same thing, and like all that you experienced, all that you knew, you couldn't be awakened from that place. You were there. You were kind of asleep because you didn't know anything better, right? Same thing day after day. Even if you shifted companies, pretty much the same thing. Okay, revolution hit 10 plus years ago, social media, and now everything is shown to the real world as fast as it hits. And you're just bombarded with new perspectives on what could be different, what's bad. And of course, at least in my world, I think news as a whole and all forms of it for the most part are trending towards negative because bad news sells, right? So you're constantly being told this is not good, this is not right. And maybe you believe that, maybe you don't, but you're being bombarded with this dissatisfaction that everyone else is feeling. And then you start to believe this thing that maybe I don't like what's going on either, which could be for your betterment. I agree. It could unlock you from your slumber. But then beyond everything being shoved in your face from social media, the second piece is like a generational awakening, something I love so much about Gen Z. As a millennial, I'm like on the cusp of this, but I see it so much more in Gen Z, which is this true embracement of their individuality, of their mental health, of their self-direction, as you often talk about, self-reliance. Like these are deeply ingrained virtues that people want to live by, and they're standing by them in the work world again and again. And that's starting to like ripple its way upward into older generations too, to the point where now that it's all shoved in our face and different segments of society want different things from work, we're all questioning, is this all there is?
Yeah, I like that. That makes a lot of sense. I think about, and I think you're spot on with those two particular aspects. What's interesting is that, um, yeah, the social media piece, right? So what kind of helps us find new perspectives is all of this, yeah, I obviously think about like the Instagram influencers, just making money off of promoting products, showing a lavish lifestyle, being a very good looking woman, whatever it may be, the YouTubers, all of those types of things. And it's like, wow, we can do something else. And then what happens is like a lot of times is like, okay, people say, I want the freedom and I want the allure of that lifestyle. So I want to go be X. I want to go be a YouTuber or an Instagram influencer or whatever that is. And that can be like a massive trap in and of itself. How do you think about like parsing, like walking that fine line of seeing inspiration? And that's what we're trying to do here, right? Like I'm trying to inspire people on this podcast to say like, hey, there is a different way, but then not get tunnel vision into, oh, I need to go put myself in a box and do X.
Think of it like, okay, you are in a parking lot and there's a bunch of vehicles in front of you. They got like Jeeps, sports cars, big trucks, all sorts of things right now. And everyone is saying, you should go get that latest Audi. Jump in that car. That is the one to be in right now. You're like, cool, I want to be in that Audi too, because I'll feel fulfilled in that Audi. It's going to give me everything I want. The fundamental question is, where the hell are you driving from there?
Right.
Like, where are you actually going to go when you're behind the wheel so that your destination, or at least your journey towards it, is fulfilling, rewarding, energizing? Because it's not the vehicle that you want. It's the feeling the vehicle provides. It's the feeling that the journey provides in your life. So I know you are very much of the same mind here, Mike. It's the reason I call my core program Uncaged Life Design, because at the root is you need to solve for what do you want your life to be in the fullest sense possible, to uncage yourself to actually live the robust life that your heart is asking for, but to go through that process first of designing what's this journey look like so that the right vehicle appears. Maybe you should have jumped in that F-150 instead of that Audi or whatever, or you should be on a bicycle. I don't know. But so many people jump into the thing and realize this is not the experience I want in my life. I don't know. How do you think of it?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's what was been astounding to me is you were very similar upbringing, and we can get into this maybe a little bit, but I was brought up in such a logical world. I was brought up, and I mean by my parents and just by society writ large, right? You use your brain to make decisions, and those should be unemotional, essentially, right? They should be based on the costs and the benefits, and that is it. And I really had a hard time because I was not allowing myself to feel certain ways. Like I wanted to go in a such and such direction, but I would always use my brain and say, oh, well, that's not XYZ, right? There's always the limiters placed on it. And so it's just slowly but surely, like reading, watching, writing, journaling, I came to a point where I realized that I'm essentially leaving half or more of my intelligence on the table by not listening to it. And I think where I landed was my emotions or my feeling or my purpose, my calling, whatever you want to call that, that should lead your direction from the get-go. And what's amazing is that when you do that, we live in an age where we have unlimited possibilities of creating income streams, revenue streams, stability, a great life and things if we want those for our families on that pathway. But if you ignore that and you say, okay, I just want to be X because I see other people doing X, it is very most likely not aligned with how you actually want to be. And that will cause you immense conflict, inner conflict that reverberates down through not only your performance along that pathway, but your relationships, your quality of presence, and all of those things. And obviously, you and I kind of deal with that with our client bases, and unwinding that is a really, really difficult thing. So, yeah, so it's a long-winded answer, but I think if you can at least buy into the fact that what you feel should set the general direction, that is a really good place to start, in my
It
opinion.
is. It's the whole idea of like rejecting the premise of labels and titles
Yeah.
altogether. Those are in and of themselves small cages within bigger cages, right?
Right.
If you're a VP of sales at a software company, you're in a cage within a cage. It's a very real feeling a lot of people have. And even when people say they want to move beyond a 9 to 5 system, they're like, well, should I be a this coach, a that coach, a this consultant? I'm like, no, no, no. Like, stop putting more boxes in your world. No more cages. Like, instead, and we can unpack this a bit more, is like, what sort of new future do you feel excited to create in this world? And just go be the champion of that. Someone can call you a coach or whatever if they'd like to, but I'd rather just get excited about creating a new future that needs to exist for people in this world and spur that.
Yeah, I love that. I am so averse to labels, just naturally, and it's something I've come to embrace now, with what I do today. But like, as an example, I refuse to go get certified as a coach or or whatever. Like I don't know, I could be a career coach or an executive coach, and I could go through these training and get these certificates because maybe my logic brain says that I need to show credibility or whatever. And I'm just like, no, like I actually want to be the anti that. And I don't want to put myself in that box. So that's a little bit maybe of that, of that thought process around labels, but you're absolutely right. We have a systematic cage, that we're all sort of defaulted into. And then like how we identify with what we do puts smaller cages around us. And that's where people get really, really trapped, in my opinion, because they have a really hard time seeing outside of that cage.
That's all they know.
Yeah, that's all they know. That's like the default attitude. One of the things that you've brought to the table with me is this analogy, or maybe that's the wrong word, but the analogy through the movie The Matrix. Can you explain that a little bit? Maybe first start with like the origins of that thought process as you were like, where did that movie come in your journey? And then tell everybody sort of why that's such a powerful metaphor.
Yeah. Man, mastering your matrix. And you got to experience that. We had an event recently. That was pretty cool to do that.
It was
live.
very good.
In 1999, when it came out, when I was in high school, I think, it was just a cool action movie. Since then, it's become life philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
And the more you deepen yourself into it, you start to see that, oh my God, when you pay attention to the nuances of the scenes and the sayings and what Morpheus is saying and what Neo's realizing, you start to go, oh, snap. We are trapped in this program, in this crazy design that we are saying yes to. We are letting ourselves be trapped by these norms, these standards, and we're telling ourselves, this is the way it is. It's a daunting job because it is objectively so. Therefore, my life must suck because it is a daunting job. See all the evidence around me? Everyone else hates their stuff. They're all miserable. I feel miserable too, but it makes sense to me. But only when Morpheus comes in with his red pills and starts awakening people, you say like, let's step out of this. Let's zoom out. Let's look at this from above. Let's look at all the ants quarreling and saying this is the way it must be. And you start to say, no, you can show up differently. You can go to any environment you want and choose the autonomy that is your birthright and start to show up differently. Just like, okay, you're in a daunting sales job at a big corporation. Great. Must you take all those trips? Must you take every call? Must you be thinking about work at nights and weekends? Must you always do everything that everyone else is doing? Or are you programmed to that and you should instead go through a deconditioning to unwire what is just wired into your brain? The more you experience something, the more the neurons fire and wire together. So it's like, of course it must be this way. Well, you've got to pull back from that and expose yourself to new ways of being, new ways of showing up at that environment, new ways of earning money, of earning a living in order to install new belief systems. And then that will be your normal, just like Neo did when he goes, oh, I didn't know this was the only way. And he started to learn Kung Fu, and he started to like show up within the Matrix as someone who could like affect change and battle the agents and do all those things. And then he realized he was the one and he had to save the world. And I think we should all wake up and think, I am the one. I need to go save the world that's in front of me, because your world is just the one that's in front of you. Mike has his own world. Matt has his own world. We all have our own worlds. What we experience is our reality. That's it. So what can you do to start taking control of it is the fundamental question.
Yeah. So if we all have this inkling, through social media or through, listening to podcasts like this or, following content that there is something more, right? Those people that say, is this all there is? And they start to see there is something more. How do people find what that more is? And that more meaning like, I don't have a better word for it. That purpose. Like, what is that? How do they find that if they don't have it?
So
you talk about deconditioning and some of that stuff. Let's get into the nitty gritty of this, because I think it's really like it's a skill and it takes time.
Cal Newport, one of the authors I know, but you and I have both paid attention to over the years. He says this thing of, you don't find your passion like hiding under a rock.
Mm-hmm.
You go cultivate it.
Right.
You go nurture it into something like a seed that must go in soil with water, with other plants that make sure it thrives, that has tending, right? That's how the seed germinates and becomes something beautiful and producing fruit. You need to think about the same thing. Like, it is a very critical thing that you put yourself in situations. And I mean, as simple as this is, you're not going to figure this stuff out on your own, because your brain can only want what it's seen before. So how do you put yourself amongst people who are thinking differently, going through different activities? You see what they're doing. You see how they've broken free from their work experience and done something new. You just expose your mind to different possibilities. But then you also set conditions. I like calling them forcing functions, so that by this date, I'm going to have my version 1 of what my life design is and what my overall purpose is. And then by this date thereafter, I'm going to take control of my corporate job, because I know it's not for me anymore. I'm going to compress it down by 40% less hours than I used to. And the other side of that, I'm going to go build a meaningful business that hooks into that purpose and that life design I was after. And it's all about, how do you create these conditions in a very practical sense? Like, over the next 4 weeks, this is my focus. And I'm going to work with these people and go through these processes, and I'm going to get these outcomes. And then my next block is this. And my next block is this. Next thing you know, you've stacked together like all these little Legos, which is like, oh my God, I'm building a new life. But you're not just going to find it. You're not going to hope for it. It's not going to hit you in the head in the middle of the night. It's not going to happen that way. But you got to create the conditions for yourself to force it forward in a compressed timeline, because life is ticking by. Let's go.
Yeah. I think when I like that. And I think if somebody is thinking there's got to be something more, I'm not, I'm here to do something else. I'm on this planet to do something else. What I find a lot of times right at the beginning is people have never allowed themselves to, quote unquote, waste time in thought or in experimentation about what that could be. And so I almost think the first step is like getting yourself to a point where you just give yourself permission to follow your curiosity. Some of that curiosity stuff that's just been like squashed for a while. I do think you need the forcing functions that Matt is talking about related to timelines, because you can't just think about it 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, every other day. That's how you lose years, right? A year of progress. You have to create a system to be able to focus on that thing, carve out time and space to actually allow yourself space to dream and think and figure out and what it is, what the path is. And then I think people oftentimes get bogged down with, well, I have to get it right. I have to get the one thing right. And it's like, no, man, I'll let you take the reins on this, but no, man, life's one big experiment, big series of experiments. Like this is a different type of thinking, learning, active creation type of plan. And so there's a lot of rewiring that has to happen there. I'll
Yeah.
give it to you.
So let's talk about experimentation while managing risks, because immediately if people say, Mike, you want me to follow my curiosity and experiment? I've got 4 kids,
Right.
1.5 mortgages, like bills breathing down my neck. I got parents to care for. Like that's immediately what's going to stop them. Hear it every single day. And it's legit, right? Reasons. But if you don't start experimenting towards a new life, a new career path that you want, you know where that's going to take you too. And let's not imagine where you'll feel 20 years from now. So the question is, how do you establish a new experimental identity where every day you are experimenting forward, which we can talk about what that means, while managing risk? And most people think, Mike, if you want me to be curious and experimental, that's going to sacrifice my day job. Well, let's get very practical. Compress that thing into a box right now. It's got a lot of fat. We need to cut the fat, focus on the real work, not the fake work. Okay, let's have an honest conversation about all the time you're wasting in that job doing stuff that actually doesn't move the needle for your organization or your boss, that gets no one a bonus. Because if it doesn't get anyone a bonus, then what's the point of it? Let's be very real. It's profit-driven companies, right? Okay, it better be like bottom line focused things. Well, you got to cut the fat of what you're doing. And if you cut the fat bravely, if you start self-respecting yourself, if you stop being so available all the time, make yourself scarce, people respect you more. You get your day back. Hell, you might not log on until 10 a.m. like a lot of my clients do at corporate, and no one else is the wiser because they think you're busy doing important things, because you are. But you have to start self-respecting yourself, reclaim your time, energy, and mental capacity. We call that space as a whole. And when you have space, then and only then do you have the foundation to start being curious and experimenting, right? But I get it. You got a full plate already. You're not going to drop a little experimental thing on top of it and say, let's do some more. That's a straight no for a lot of people. So it's about balancing risk. As you know, you're a deep professional even more than I am, Mike. How do you manage risk, but also flip risk on its head? Not just on the downside, but look at the upside of actions, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's this, the name of the bias escapes me, but there's a well-known bias that we are conditioned to see the negative, see the downside. We know all of the bad things that happen. We can create a list of that. We have an immense problem stepping into possibility and understanding that if we take a small risk, there is a very, very, very large, much larger than we can imagine upside, because there's stuff that we can't even think about that could happen, that could fall into our laps just by taking action, by thinking, by experimenting. And this is the, I'm not going to go there, but like this is the central thing with all great money managers, whether it's venture capitalists or portfolio managers. Like they're constantly taking small risks, updating their learning, incorporating all of the feedback they're getting from the market and all of their research, and then they start to bet bigger and bigger and bigger. And when you have a portfolio, which is essentially what an experimentation chain is, it's a portfolio of mini bets. Some of them are going to fail for sure. Some of them are going to be okay. And all you need is to be right once. Because like in a venture capital portfolio, the Facebook in your portfolio is what is responsible for returning all of the returns for that portfolio. And so if you can have that sort of remedial statistical thinking, you don't have to be like an expert, but look at how can I use experimentation as mini bets on myself. I don't know the future. I don't know what is going to happen, but I need to give myself some space. And let's be honest too, giving yourself a little bit of space to think and dream in a focused way doesn't mean do that 8 hours a day. No. Like a 2-hour focus block is going to get you further than these 15-minute chunks interspersed between everything. So it's a frame of reference of how to take agency and control over your direction that I think, we as a society are just completely deconditioned to.
Yeah. You when you talk about the money managers, they're managing a lot of risk in order to be right once. Ask yourself this: if you're purely in a corporate system, can you ever be right in a big way if you stay that path? Like, will something big, tremendous, amazing, if you purely play that game? Like, is it possible? I think it's very low likelihood. Now, if that's running in the background, supporting you, keeping your life afloat, and you start to make more bets out there for yourself in different environments, that's when things get really interesting in a hurry. You got serendipity playing out, luck seems to happen, but like, you've got to go create conditions for yourself outside of the default path, because it's very walled off and there's not going to be a lot of people who can see what you're great at. And you've got to go start creating conditions for yourself out in the world that have people see how wonderful you truly are.
Right. And let's get really, really real for 1 second. Like, for everybody listening that is in a corporate job, what you might not realize is you are 100%, maybe even 1,000% levered to your job currently. You don't necessarily have a portfolio, a fallback plan. And I think a lot of people are realizing that, with, especially like in tech layoffs, right? Like, oh, I thought I was just supposed to go be the best at this one thing and I'll be totally okay. But the world's changing. And if you don't have some other options for outlet, for income, for creative expression, whatever that may be, you don't have a brand, you're not doing anything else, like, shit happens. I'm sorry, it does. And you could get let go. And now you really, when that happens, then you really realize how risky that one path is. So I think, that's a wake-up call for people, right? Like, to start proactively thinking and planning for not only what else they could do, but to just be having options of where they might, go. Developing the relationships and networking relationships, all of that stuff creates more serendipity, more points of quote unquote luck. You're expanding your luck surface areas. I think that's a really good, point that you brought up there.
One thing I want to build on real quick is that most people only operate from a state of pain. People want pain removed more so than they want a beautiful new future, right? When you're in pain, you want that pain fixed. If your knee's busted, you want your knee fixed so that you can walk again. And the great majority of people won't act proactively. They won't. If you do, you're one of the enlightened ones. That's awesome. But when something does happen to you, you get laid off, or you feel like your path is cut off at corporate and you hit your head on the ceiling, or your personal relationships at home, your marriage, relationship with your kids are at like a bleeding neck point and it's really, really bad and it's hitting you in the face. When you have something or a series of things really hit you, pay attention. That is the universe saying, wake up. This current approach is not working. It's only going to get worse. Don't try to grind your way through it and just like, oh, if I switch jobs, then therefore everything gets better. No, like, it's your relationship with the work. It's the person you are. That's the problem. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. So when you're facing that pain, it's like a great opportunity to say, like, oh, snap, I got to go do something about this right now. Don't let it fester.
Yeah. And again, your point of view and my point of view is accept that there will be bad things that happen to you in the future, because we can't predict the future. And if you accept that today, starting right now today, you can then start to have a more proactive plan. I always say, like, the greatest antidote to being trapped or to being in pain or anxiety, not knowing what to do, is having another option. Like, if your job's great right now, but you're cultivating relationships with the competitors, or you're building your network or whatever, right? Like, and all of a sudden things happen at your company, you're going to be reduced to a number on a spreadsheet when a company has pain. it's a real possibility that you have to go somewhere else. And the people who are like, oh yeah, I can just step right over here. I can sidestep that. Or you know what? I've already built an income stream that replaces my job. Like, cool. I don't have to worry about that. I don't have the pain that everybody else is seeming to go through, and the monkey mind, and just like, oh my God, I have to get another job immediately. And these people are breathing. They're free from that type of stuff. So the more proactive you can get with the experimentation, with the tinkering, just makes risk management sense from my opinion. So now, like, we're getting into uncertainty and we're getting into fear, because what you just described is a acute moment of fear and pain. But we also just have, what prevents us from taking action, taking some agency, placing some of these bets is just plain old fear of the unknown. And it gets reduced to that word fear, period. The unknown being fearful, the known being okay. And this is why, even battered women stay with their abusers, is because the pain of thinking about the uncertain future is greater than making the move. How do you, when your clients come to you and they're in these states and they don't know what to do and they're fearful, how do you help them understand that fear and start to take action to eliminate it?
Fear is an emotion, and it's the product of a belief. So I like thinking about this flywheel called the belief flywheel. Mike, I think you and I've looked at it together before, where there's a cycle of things and it's all rooted in beliefs. You have a belief leads to a thought, to a feeling, to an action, to a result. Let's play that out for a second, okay? I have a belief that this corporate job is daunting and it just inherently takes over my life. It's just the way the job is. It's the job's fault. Okay, so I'm thinking that every day. Well, okay, this is going to be another 12-hour day. I need to travel again for 3 days during the course of this week and miss my family. And my feelings are like, yep, I'm pissed off about it, but at the same time, I'm completely accepting of it. And then my actions are I give in and I follow exactly the travel schedule, and I say yes to all the meetings, and I play 12 to 13-hour days, and I barely have time for my family. And the results is I'm sad. I'm unhappy. My family gets a shell of me. My marriage is growing distant. I can't see a way out of this. And then you play that again the next day. Well, it's all rooted in this belief that the job is daunting. Keyword is, the job is daunting. Well, what if you flip that? The job is a tool. My employer is my investor. Let's play that one. I love this one. Mm-hmm. My employer is my investor. What will I think then? Okay. I think that it's there to serve me in my future. I think that I'll play a good role there. I'll get some cool outcomes on my terms there. I'll show up very thoughtfully, concentrated set of activities and hours. And then I'll feel awesome because I know I got the best ROI at work. I gave a handful of hours, gave some pretty kick-ass outcomes. People like me and respect me, but I got my life back. So I'm not logging on early in the morning, not thinking about work late at night, because my employer is my investor. They don't own me. They are my investor. They're building in future me, this amazing new life that I'm creating for me and my family, right? And the belief flywheel goes round from there. So the question often is, how do you install better beliefs? First, how do you uncover what the bad beliefs are? And frankly, just look at your results. If something's negative in your life, I don't like this. Cool. Well, what's the root belief that's causing it? And then you have to do inner work. You have to do work quietly on yourself, critical. This is where things like, it gets me very upset when people think like, I don't have time for meditation or journaling or walks out in nature, because you are completely missing the opportunity to understand what your limiting beliefs are and therefore installing better ones. Because it's that opportunity right there, that ritual, that set of daily activities that completely can change how your life is experienced every single day. And everyone you come in contact with is either positively or negatively affected by your beliefs. And it's people who write off these opportunities to install better habits that get them into better states, that build better beliefs, that get to better outcomes. So I look at it, that flywheel, in that you got to get to the root cause. Got to stop treating symptoms in your life. Stop putting Band-Aids on. Like, if I only had more money, my corporate job wouldn't suck so much. No, it's your relationship with the job and your belief about it that's causing you so much pain. Don't treat it with real estate investment. No, it's not enough. There's so much deeper work that needs to be done. Sorry, you got me on a tirade.
No, I love it. And if you weren't going to tirade right there, I probably would have. So I appreciate you taking the reins. Yeah, it just strikes me as I don't know. This was it was just a discovery for me myself. Was like we spend so much time acquiring skills, learning things to try to create some outcome or get better at something for our job, for the path that we have chosen, and we think that that is like what we are supposed to do. But at no point has anybody ever given us a framework or a system to update our internal compass, basically. Like, is the ladder that you're climbing, is it leaning against the right wall? And that is that is the biggest question that you should be answering, right? You talk about like putting the big rocks in first, right? Like into a jar. You can't fill the jar appropriately if you put all the pebbles in first and then try to put the big rocks in. Like, there's too much space in there. There's too much waste. But if you put the big rocks in first, the big priorities, making sure you're directionally accurate, for instance, right? And then you start to throw in the smaller rocks, the specific skills, the whatever the channel, whatever it is in there. And then you start to throw the sand in, which is all the other crappy, like, day-to-day stuff that fills your life. Then everything fits together. But we just do not ask ourselves or have a system for truly getting to truth with ourselves. And that's where I think you're talking like the most impactful skill or habit that you can create is a routine around self-reflection. And for you, I know that's been journaling. Talk to us a little bit about like the genesis of your journaling routine, when that started, and like what it looks like today for you. Because I do think that this is so important, and people are fearful of sitting with their own thoughts too.
Yeah. So I got divorced a decade ago and probably started my journaling routine about a year into that. My therapist at the time was like, just start this, see where it could go. And fast forward to where it is now, journaling, I could show you an entire bookshelf of journals that I believe created the life I have right now. Without that, that's my superpower, my secret weapon, that is to have those books, the quiet, reflective time, pen and paper, to just understand what's happening up here, get it out, stare at it, and then do something about it. Have an honest look at it, make a tough decision, go have a hard conversation with someone in my life that needs to have it. It's all a process of that. And I'll tell you just where I am right now from a practical sense. Monday through Friday, because I don't work on weekends anymore, I have this very specific ritual. And number one is starting with your nervous system. So I do breath work and follow like guided ones I find online. There's all sorts of great ones. Breathe with Sandy is my favorite. You've seen it. If you calm your nervous system through the breath, then you have physiological effects where stress and anxiety melt away. It's creating a certain type of space in your life. When your nervous system is calm, you're like, all right, feel good, like legit feel good, almost like you're floating on cloud nine. Then I would get to some reading to nurture my mind with some good books, just for a few minutes even. Then I open up that journal with some coffee and I'm like, okay, I have a process, a little framework that I go through in order to just like come out every single day. Like, what am I fearful of? What are my dreams? What are my gratitudes? What must today be? Right. And go through this day after day. And it's stacked for years and years and years to the point where I legit I say this with full sincerity, that I don't feel stressed. I don't feel anxious. Even as an entrepreneur now, who has variable income, doesn't have the safety of a corporate paycheck, has 4 kids, a wife, 2 mortgages, an ex-wife, all sorts of things. Like, I don't feel stressed and anxious. And you think I should have every reason there to feel stressed and anxious. But I don't. And I think it goes down to the core work I'm doing, because it's in those quiet moments, Mike, in that ritual, that's my block to build the beliefs I was telling you about. I stare at the ones that are limiting, I delete them, and I install better ones. And you can imagine every single day, it's like writing code in an operating system. Like, these lines don't serve us. They are actually like viruses. We need to delete these viruses and install better code so that the whole machine works better. That's what I'm doing every single day in a practical sense. And if we don't have that for ourselves, we're going to be reacting to life, letting it happen to us. And that's not a place you want to be.
Yeah, I think about it, and you obviously say this is like, it's the mental gym. So anybody that works out, you know that you need repetitions, whether that's to get yourself in better cardiovascular shape, to run faster, longer, whatever that may be, or if it's building muscle, lifting weights. The repetitions are what matters. And so here, this is your mental gym. And I think the process and doing the reps, and yeah, maybe they're shit for the first little bit, but if you stick with it, what happens is you start to get really good at asking yourself questions. And I think asking yourself questions in the right way, or asking questions period, is a massive skill, because what you're trying to get to is truth about yourself and how you feel and what you want. And that doesn't happen through just blind serendipity. It doesn't happen through luck of, like, figuring out what you want doesn't just generally happen through luck. It is a process of asking yourself, what is true? What do I believe about this particular issue problem? And what are my pathways around it, through it? Is it serving me? All of those types of things. And that's how you gain more clarity about your situation. So the divorce was a catalyst for you in this instant. You had a deep pain, and you were guided by a trusted representative to try to use this to basically discover and heal and find a new way. I just think about fear and people sitting with their own thoughts. If somebody doesn't have that acute situation, how do they start? Like, we talk about breaking it down, making it really easy, not putting pressure on yourself. But I do think this is so important, and I want to get more people off the starting block.
Yeah, very simple. Shine a light on what you don't want. Call out your anti-goals, anti-vision. Because one of the greatest things any of us can have in life is contrast, right? Like, you don't appreciate the sun without the rain, the warmth without the cold, right? So something in your life recently, in some period of time, I guarantee you don't want anymore. You don't like it. There's some feature, some people, some income situation, some type of work. You're like, I don't like this anymore. Well, shine a light on it and be like, I don't want this anymore. I don't want this. I don't want this. I don't want this. Okay. On the other side of saying what I don't want, the 180, the opposite of that, is usually what you do want. And you can clarify that for yourself. If you're not hit with some sickness or divorce or some crazy thing like some of us, okay, just shine a light on what you don't want. Give it focus. Make it specific. Come back to it day after day for like a few days, and you're going to be like, your brain is going to start seeing it everywhere. If you don't want to be drowning at work, okay, and it's like, oh, I don't like all the meetings and all the bosses that keep breathing down my neck. So if you keep giving it attention, guess what? Your brain's going to see it everywhere. You're like, oh my God, another meeting, another one, a recurring meeting, a 3-hour town hall. Fucking kidding me? Like, no, like, get that stuff out of here. Because you've given it attention, what you don't want, then you start like rejecting it. And then it gives you the space to be like, okay, what's the opposite of this? What do I want instead? That becomes more clear. But I think we need to create that contrast. It's available to you if you shine the light on the things you don't want. And then what you do want starts to become clear. That's why people get stuck with like goal setting. Like, I don't know what I want. It doesn't feel very clear. Like, okay, start with what you don't want, what you absolutely cannot bear anymore. Shine a light there. And then I guarantee you in a few days, what you do want starts to become more clear. And then the whole belief flywheel kicks in on what you do want. And then you'll start hanging around with new people, doing new things, making investments in yourself, like separating from your old life and start building your new one. It's that process, but you really have to break it down that way for yourself.
Yeah, I totally agree. Most people are, when they're anxious or when they're grappling with this problem, we default to scrolling social media, right? Because it's super easy and we're just wired to do it. And when you're just scrolling through social media and you see the person with the Lamborghini, or you see the person taking a selfie inside a rented private jet, you're like, oh man, I want that. And what do they do? Oh, they did this. They built passive income. They created a drop shipping store and all this kind of stuff. And you start to look at the tactics behind what produced whatever that, faux outcome is. And that's a recipe for disaster, because that's just chasing shiny objects. There's no alignment with who you are. It doesn't honor who you are naturally. There's no necessarily connection to any type of purpose that's going to drive you through. And people waste time. They want tactical, but if, again, I keep thinking about, if you're not going in the right direction, it doesn't matter. And so, yeah, I love the idea of reversing it, right? Of flipping the script. And this is what I did in 2018 when I got myself out. This is the first thing I asked myself, serendipitously, randomly. I didn't know what I was doing, but I was like, what do I not want? And I started there, and there's a whole article out there somewhere on Starter Story about my story, and starting with that. And I identified exactly what I didn't want. And then that helped me gain clarity on what I do want. And this is at a life stage, a life view, what Matt and I are talking about, not necessarily just the job view. And I had no idea that I wanted to be a coach, or that I could be impactful as a coach. I actually resisted it for a long time. But through this process, that's where I landed. And man, I know with certainty that I'm going in the right direction. I don't know exactly if it's all going to work out the way I pictured or the way I want to, right? We have to be open to it working out a different way. But I know with certainty that I'm going in the right direction. I've never felt that before in my life. And that's a very, very good feeling. So when you say you're not stressed, right? You're not anxious, you have that same feeling because you know you're on a mission, and that mission is highly aligned with who you are. And it's all from the reps.
It is. And when you go down a self-directed path, to use your term, there's going to be a lot of pain. There's going to be a lot of growth, as in any growth. Any worthwhile thing you want in your life, you're going to have to go through a valley in order to reach the other side. And I feel like, especially in the last year, like the first couple of years out of corporate, just to zoom to that for a second, where I had very rosy vision. And then life hit, and it was hard and scary, and there were tears and frustrations and tense conversations at home. But now looking back, it's like, man, I had to go through that in order to be where I am now, to learn all the skills I needed to learn, to have the appreciation for what the past life had given me, and now just be like, have that healthy pressure in my life to do something bold and big. And man, there's hard times. That's part of it. And as long as you're staying true to like what your intuition is pulling you towards, that's like the coolest ride of all time. And you got to ask yourself, are you living a fraction of that right now? Or are you just like plugging in the default path saying you want to live an authentic life? Because that hurts.
Pain plus reflection equals progress.
There you go.
You can't have progress without pain. Nothing is, you don't just skip down the road, right? You're always going to have issues coming up. It's already happening at work. You already have that pain. Are you doing the reflections necessary to actually make the progress? So we talked a little bit about what you don't want. We talked about dealing with fear. We talked about just this, reflective process. Talk to me a little bit about actually building that future vision, though, of what you do want, the life, and the other side of it, and why that is so deeply important to have.
Well, here's where most people start. Their logical corporate minds think like, if I solve this income problem, then I'll find freedom. It's the
Yeah.
retirement mindset.
Right.
Freedom happens on the other side of enough money. Nope. Because what you are lacking in your life is generally control of your time, feeling free, alive, purposeful, high quality family relationships, dialed in with them, making memories, instilling new values for generations to come. These are the deep things that we want on the other side of money. So it really comes down to setting that as your intention first, like designing for that. We have a thing we do in Uncage Life Design called the Freedom Blueprint. Look at where you want to be over different dimensions of life. And there's variations of this on the internet, right? But like from how you're spending your time, your health, your purpose, relationships you have in your life, financial situation. Like, what do you dream that to be? Go down 10 years, walk it back 5 years, 1 year, 1 month from now. Start to just like look at that. Where could this go? Where's the glide path for all of this sort of thing? Dream, like get uncomfortably big with that sort of thing. It's a whole like aim high, miss high thing. If you are just getting wildly big and aiming for impossible goals, Dr. Benjamin Hardy talks about this all the time. The art of impossible goals means you can't do default stuff anymore. You're going to have to do things beyond what you've been doing in order to unlock the impossible goals. You're going to have to get out of your comfort zone, new relationships, new investment in self, building new skills. Like if you're going to build a business, like you're going to have to set the conditions for that business to be true. If you want to leave corporate, well, you're going to have to set the conditions for you leaving corporate, including like circling a date on your calendar at some point where you're going to be gone. Like these are all really important things to take care of. And it's just like aiming for the impossible and being clear on where your life is going is the foundation to be like, okay, what kind of work vehicle or portfolio career can get me there?
Right. It's the opposite of setting SMART goals. So SMART goals have that realistic word in there, right? They want you to be realistic. And that's what a lot of people do. They say, oh, I can't say that I'm going to make $2 million this year. What if it's, 150? Okay, that seems like it's kind of actually doable. But what happens is you're not setting the conditions for yourself to think outside the box, to go after make the actions that can bring super high leverage and outsized results to the upside. You're thinking still in linear terms of, if I improve by 3% this year and 3% the next, then I'm doing well or whatever. This was hard for me to wrap my head around too, because I was a very realistic person. Can't allow myself to say I'm going to make 10 million bucks someday or whatever. Like that's wild. That's like crazy. Not me. But when you do that, let's say you don't make 10 million, you make the 2 million. That was originally your thought. Is that a failure? Fucking hell no, it's not a failure, right? You've outkicked your coverage massively. So we're so wired for this like perfectionism and did I attain the absolute, highest goal? That's not the point. The point is to set yourself on a different trajectory entirely, a non-linear trajectory. And that's the power of the big goals piece, the big future vision piece. And then the flip side is that people are actually doing it on this platform, on other platforms, in other areas of life. They're actually doing it and making it happen. And, I just look at the future. I'm like, this idea of self-directed work should just be absolutely exploding. So that's the point, right, Matt? Like, it's not about did you hit the actual target that you aimed, but did you go on a nonlinear path and open yourself up to that possibility and create the conditions that you completely outkick your coverage and do better than you wildly expected.
Let's take that $10 million a year income that you want. Okay, let's say that. Now, hold that vision. Hold the vision. Close your eyes. You see yourself making $10 million a year. It's happening. It's somehow coming to you. You don't know all the specifics. You don't know the timeline either, because that's not up to you. There's a lot of stuff out there in the world you're kind of needing to interact with. Give you an example for me. If I have a vision like that, and I do, like numbers are like that for me in my head. From a financial piece, there's other features I'm driving towards beyond money. But, in corporate life, I was making several $100,000 a year, steady state salary. Like, cool. That was great. I was grateful for that. And I knew that just from a financial perspective, like I wasn't going to get exponential growth there. It's like 3 to 10%, 3 to 10%, like on the best of years, that sort of thing. And I knew I needed to create a new situation so that I could like aim towards the 10 million, because that path was not cutting it at all. Not anytime soon, especially given all the sacrifices I had to make there. And just fast forward to where I am right now, like it's often the case by like the third or fourth day of the month that I've already eclipsed my old monthly salary. Now just ask yourself what that signifies. By the third or fourth day of the month, if I stopped working, I've already surpassed my corporate salary that I had to give 60 plus hours a week to for an entire month, doing work that did not feel good to me while missing my family. That signals to me I'm on the right trajectory towards 10 million. And I just need to be putting myself in situations and learning from mentors who help point me in that direction with the greatest likelihood possible. That's the sort of thing we'd want to do in order to change that trajectory.
Yeah, makes total sense. Love it. And yeah, like I said, it's happening. So what we've kind of covered is a process, creating some space for you to actually think about the big questions, the stuff that matters, orient yourself in the right direction at work, keep your job, right? But giving you a framework to think differently about how you approach that job. What are the absolutely important tasks that deliver results, eliminating the fat, cutting the fat, deciding for yourself and reflecting on what you do not want at all in that future, and gaining more clarity of that big, bold future that you could possibly live with your family, with all those relationships, with everything that's inside of you that you've maybe pushed down or repressed. And my friends, that is how you break work mentally. That is how you can start to feel better at your job and frankly be more valuable even than you thought, which is surprising, which you see from some of your clients a lot of times. But that is the recipe for breaking work and living uncaged, as Matt says, right? You can still maybe have that physical cage for a while. You may have to put up with that, but we're creating the conditions, we're taking the steps to ultimately unlock that final cage. So this is a really, really, really important process that I want everybody to take home. Matt, I am going to wrap up, but I want to let you, I have 3 questions, but did I miss anything? Did I not ask you anything that we should have covered? Or do you just have kind of like a final word that you want to leave everybody with?
Let's go to your questions. We'll try to get it there.
All right. These are just sort of rapid fire, but who are some of the most influential people in your life that the audience can learn more about or follow or whatever?
Hold one up. It's a little statue. People can't see it, but if you're on audio, Ralph Waldo Emerson taught me the idea of self-reliance. Named my son after him. If you look into self-reliance and the principles, he's from the 1800s. Self-direction, same concept, right?
Yep,
You
that's
understand.
where I got it.
Yeah, right. It's the same. Rooting that as a value system, it says like I'm not dependent on the outside world. I have a strong belief in self that I am capable. He would even talk about like we're all like a sliver of the divine, of God, whatever your higher power is. Like we're all a sliver of that. Use that power because it was given to you. Don't live small. Like go shine that. Use self-reliance. Don't be dependent on external systems because they're going to let you down. You're so much more than that. I'll start with him.
Okay, that's great. Anybody online? Anybody that you're like, I know Ben Hardy's a big influence. Dr. Benjamin Hardy.
You're going to love this one. Jim Carrey.
Yes,
Jim Carrey is one of the most like you won't, unless you've seen his evolution. You won't get this, but he's like one of my spiritual guides. This dude, from what you remember in Ace Ventura and Dumb and Dumber and his rise, if you look back at his history from how he wrote himself a $10 million check, he told Oprah about this and he manifested that. And then how he detached himself from the noise of Hollywood and viewed it from a detached lens and just become this like calm force of just like, it's, oh my God, like that dude, if you see who he is right now, it's so powerful to see where you could be outwardly successful and check all those boxes, but then go through this transformation where you feel so self-directed, so like at peace with the world. And he operates from that. Like he gets to choose the career stuff he's doing now. He's just like so at peace as a human. Like watching his interviews, like on YouTube, you're just like calmer and you feel like a better person because of it. Like I would have expected that shift in someone like him, but he's a big one.
Yeah, that's a really good one. Yeah, I agree. I've been seeing a lot of his stuff and consuming more of just watching that evolution. You're like, wow, cool. All right. What are you reading right now, or what topic is like in the front of your mind at the moment? Maybe that's a challenge that you're facing. Maybe it's something with the business, or just what you're thinking about, an issue topic that's front of mind, or book what you're reading about.
I just started rereading for like the fourth time. You know this one probably, Mike. It's called The 22 Laws of Category Design.
Yeah.
This book, oh my God. It's essentially a marketing book for entrepreneurs. But at the essence, it talks about what we were doing before. It's like, don't follow paths, don't build businesses, don't create careers, don't create a life that's you plugging into other people's systems.
Yeah.
But how do you create an entire new category? Great example, Steve Jobs and the smartphone. Essentially, the glass top smartphone did not exist before him. And now they own that category. They own the whole thought leadership of everything associated with that. I don't care how good Samsung is in their product. Like Apple owns that, right? Or the kitchen top composter. There's a company, it's slipping my mind right now, but the idea of kitchen top composting, or you creating a business that's more intellectual. Like we're talking about helping people like break work and graduate corporate life, like building movements around ideas. Like the whole idea of category design is to point out a future that needs to exist for a very specific group of people in this world, and then go be the evangelist, the champion, the nonstop person who's leading people towards that. You're being a transformational leader, helping people get towards that state. So like, I'm always asking myself, how am I designing a category? Because that may sound like very business specific, but when I know I'm championing a movement, and I believe this in my heart, that's doing good in this world, and I see it as saving families, as saving lives, which impacts generations, and is truly in my purpose and my calling. So when I connect something like building a business for its one of one category, like that lights me up and gives me purpose. Like I can't even tell you. And I think that way everywhere I go. Every person I help, every client, I'm like, what is your category? Are you entering an existing niche, which I mean, like it's going to be very hard, or are you going to create a new category, which could unlock a whole new version of you and how you show up in this world?
Yeah, love it. I highly recommend that as well, because we're all individuals, and if we are seeking more creativity and self-expression within whatever it is that we do, or whatever cages there are, it still helps you. It still helps you understand how you can bring your own point of view to the job, or to the industry, or to the problem, issue, whatever that is, in an authentic way. And it can help aid your discovery and the clarity that you find towards your purpose. So I love that. Last one's easy. I mean, where can people find more about you and the work you do?
Yeah, just go to MatthewDoan.com. Done a lot of work to centralize resources and socials and everything there, including a masterclass on how we do what we do and uncaging people. But yeah, man, I'm just blessed and honored to have this relationship with you. We have a great friendship, and honored to be able to have this next conversation with you. I know we're meant to be doing this sort of thing. There's a lot of people that need to hear this. I'm hoping that the algorithms and all that get more of this in front of people, because man, like there's a lot of people who need the type of topics that we're going through right now. I love your mission. Keep staying true to it, man. You're doing a lot of amazing work.
Thank you. I feel the same way about you. And this is the power of LinkedIn. You can build Matt lives, in the DC area. I'm in little old Wisconsin. We've developed an amazing friendship, and we have made time to be with each other in person. And so that can happen. It does happen. It happens every single day. And it's an amazing thing because when you start to go self-directed, when you start to go the solo path, you find your pack. And Matt and I have found each other along with a lot of his clients, my clients, like we're tight and we found our pack. And that in and of itself feels amazing and inspirational and gives us the fuel to keep doing what we do. So that can happen for you as well. Matt, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. Can't wait to talk to you again very soon.
Thank you, brother.